So let's start with the first quarterback domino that did actually fall. Jimmy Garoppolo, 3 years, $67.5 million for Jimmy, with $34 million guaranteed. Okay, so if you putting that into context with some of the other quarterback deals that we've seen, $22.5 million, obviously much lower than what Daniel Jones got, what Derek Carr got, and that $34 million guaranteed is in the range of 1/3 of what both Derek Carr and Daniel Jones got with the Saints and the Giants, respectively. It makes sense to me based on the way the other quarterback dominoes were falling. I don't know how you feel about this, but now that we have Carolina at 1, the Texans likely drafting a quarterback at 2, was the Colts being at 4, that third pick really being up for sale. Do they really want to go all the way up there? I think there's just a lot of things to consider when you think about the pathways to a rookie quarterback in this class, which we always thought was the best outcome for the Raiders after moving on from Derek Carr. If that wasn't going to be an obvious possibility, getting a stopgap like Jimmy G at half of the price of some of these other guys, I think does make sense.
It makes a ton of sense, and especially with Jimmy G going back with Josh McDaniels. That makes a ton of sense. Apparently, the Raiders were sniffing around about moving up to 1, so that it wasn't they were in the talks. They were in the works about it. So it makes sense that they were trying to find all the avenues they can. The result of all this makes a ton of sense, like you said, with all the other dominoes that fell, especially the Panthers moving up to 1, the Cardinals now being in that kind of that really good spot of they can choose their adventure where they want to trade or they hold on to the Will Anderson, and that changes different dominoes. I think this was a way for the Raiders to at least have half a butt cheek on the seat. It's just that they're not going to be empty when they finish this whole process. When I saw Jared Stidham, I know we're getting ahead of myself going to the Broncos. I was like, okay, so that means the Raiders are going to sign something, or they're signaling that they want to draft somebody, but this is a way that they're committed, but they're not fully committed to like this long-term thing. They can kind of get through this year with a competency at the quarterback position, especially for more of a vet-laden offense and a team that has a ton of holes on it. So they didn't want to splurge. I know. So I'm talking about both sides of my mouth here, but it's really just, I think this is their way to straddling whether avenue they want to take for the quarterback market.
Derek Carr was going to have a $35 million cap hit this year if they had kept Derek Carr. I assume Jimmy Garoppolo will be in the range of $15 to $17 million.
Yeah.
So it's for half. So it's a lateral.
Would you say it's $33 million cap hit, and Jimmy's getting guaranteed 34 total?
Yes.
So that's right there. That's where the money is.
So if you're going to have a non-elite veteran quarterback, I think that they made the move down to the cheaper one that can act as a bridge. It's only $34 million guaranteed. I assume if they want to, they can move on after this season. So if the draft falls a certain way to them, they can still take a guy, let him sit, and then move on to him next year. This isn't the sort of deal that precludes them from doing that. And that's why it's a little bit different than the Daniel Jones contract or the Derek Carr contract. It's why the Geno Smith deal is different than the Daniel Jones contract.
That's what I was
because he only has $40 million guaranteed. So there are enough nuances between all of these things that make the considerations of taking on the contract a little bit different. So with the Raiders being in that tough spot of not really controlling their quarterback destiny in the draft, really to start, but certainly after Carolina went up ahead of them, I can understand wanting to be in this spot.
Yeah, I think the Geno comparisons as far as contract and also timeline of team, I guess, is kind of that's the more similar thing here. It makes sense, both early 30s quarterbacks, vets, kind of Geno. I was about to say a proven vet. Geno's 1 year of proof now, but Jimmy's had some really good years in San Francisco. So I think that's exactly what it is. That's more the path that they're taking, that they can have a competency at this year and figure out their plan for the long term or even the midterm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love the idea of Jimmy Garoppolo with Devontae Adams. Like on a football level, it's not the most exciting pairing in the world, but I do think if they want to have the seat filled, this makes sense because it's not a bottom of the barrel 1 year stopgap veteran. It's one step up from that, but it's still not something where you're locking yourself in long term. Obviously, there's the familiarity with Josh McDaniels. I mean, there's so many things that make the move make sense, even if I do think it's a temporary move for them as they figure out what the long-term plan at quarterback looks like.